Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So there's some fires going on in South Florida, some big ones.
Firefighters in South Florida are battling a new fire in the Everglades. This is video of a remote area between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. One person had to be evacuated by boat.
By boat. Actually, these fires are pretty massive. Right now we're at 20% containment, but last night it was at 0% containment. Look at how straight a line that fire is.
Yeah, that's like really curious. I've never seen a fire burn in such a straight line. I wonder what's going on there.
As we got a little fox running through the front yard there. Very skinny little fox, by the way. So, one of the things that automatically comes to mind when we see fires like this is, what's planned for the neighborhood? Yeah, we were doing a little research. I didn't see anything planned at the moment for this neighborhood. The Everglades, by the way, if you've never been through them, it's a good thing to go take a drive through them. It's amazing. The energy there is just different. But here you go. This is over 5,000 acres burned as of May 11, sending smoke towards Pembroke Pines area while fire crews work to contain their blaze. 20% containment right now. This blaze, dubbed the Max Road fires, burned again just about 5,000 acres. And of course, the smoke's going to be hazardous. This is another thing. A lot of people have breathing issues. A lot of people are having issues with, a lot of things health-wise at this point in time, and this is not going to add to it. Meanwhile, you do have a massive wildfire burning through Chernobyl exclusion zone following UAV crash in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine was known as the breadbasket of Europe, if we forget that, because all we've thought about with Ukraine for the most part in the last 4+ years has been the ongoing war, which has claimed hundreds of thousands, if not more, lives. This is a complicated fire because you have the threat of landmines in the area, and the fire, the fire as well as the war and firefights that go on. This is just a craziness that so many of us are just looking forward to seeing end. Here you have a club on fire in Hanoi. There's been so many unusual fires. This, very likely has nothing to do with any of the other fires that we're talking about. But when we see these things, we think again in Canada, as in Hawaii, during the forest fires, it's so curious to see houses completely destroyed and somehow trees are standing. That just seems to defy logic. Is it people's guardian angels keeping the fire away from, keeping the fire away from their trees, and not their homes? I think there's a lot of things that people are starting to question. And you have a final round of severe storms going to be drenching parts of the Gulf and southeast coast, bring a renewed flash flood threat for the Interstate 10 corridor. Again, you got to wonder, how hard would it be to nudge that rain a little bit farther south and take care of the drought problem? We understand cloud seeding's out there. And again, weather control, weather manipulation is a reality. So much has been declassified, even through military sources talking about this. And so you got to wonder, why do we have any sort of issues with this? How about earthquakes? That was quite an earthquake swarm. Literally damaged water lines and roads near Brawley, California. Hundreds and hundreds of quakes. I've seen this before at different times. Right now there's 58 quakes, 294 quakes showing USGS in this particular area near Brawley in the last 24 hours. Just south again of the Salton Sea. There have been times when we've had many more times that quakes, but we still watch them because, again, when you see these swarms, it could be indicative of a bigger quake coming. Up here at this area south of Lahontan Reservoir, south of Silver Springs, Nevada. 28 quakes out of 294 again. In this area, there's been swarming going on up here in Nevada, again to the east of Carson City, and then way down here, below the Salton Sea, 2 different swarms, and of course, everything is connected. When we look at the biggest quake in the last 24 hours over by Tonga, a 5.3, and then we have a couple of 5.2s. So nothing major over there. But the anomalous weather, it just keeps continuing. You have had a lot of record cold temperatures, record snowfalls. This is in Russia, over in the Kamchatka area. You have seen massive snowfalls, literally burying multi-story buildings. It's been extremes, and the extremes keep getting extremes. And then we have things like this, century-old olive trees, uprooted, replaced with solar panels. And then and this is, by the way, over in Spain, there's been a lot of that ongoing. And then we see a lot of them end up damaged and abandoned and just sitting there toxifying the land. Why would we want to toxify the land?
I know, and then it goes into the ground, and then over time seeps into the groundwater, and then the groundwater is bad. But hey, the groundwater might be good to cool a data center, though, and then hey, after that, I heard they're cleaning the data center water and letting us have it. At that point, they're so generous. What is going on? It just seems like the whole infrastructure is under attack. Our whole infrastructure. Look at how does that swarm just happen to damage so many water lines? And in the process of rebuilding water lines, are they going to reroute the water to a data center? I mean, really, I've said this before, and I'll say it a million more times until we have a much clearer picture. The math is not mathing with the data centers. There's something going on, something big is going to happen before we know it. It's like they're not letting us in on all the information. And everyone who is in on the party with these data centers, they are getting their pockets lined. They are making so much money, so they just don't care. They don't care. They're in with the cool crowd, with the popular kids, so they don't care. The ones that matter are not going to push back, because why should they? They're only going to get punished if they push back. They're only going to lose their mansions, their new cars, and everything else that they've acquired, the college tuitions for their children. They're going to lose their Gucci bags and their designer clothes and all their money if they push back on the data centers. But if they don't push back and they just give their blessing, well, they get rewarded. And what happens to the rest of us? What happens to the birds, the insects, the trees, the flowers, the ground? What happens to Earth? What the mother sustains us. The earth energy is why we walk and breathe and talk and communicate and feel and love and embrace life. And that is being drained. That's being drained. Something needs to give. Something is going to give. What is it going to be?
Mm-hmm. Well, since you brought that up over here, let's just listen to, again, the system. Byron Daniels openly pushing for large AI data centers to be built where? In rural counties in Florida. He has received millions of dollars from some super PACs. Again, listen to him.
What I am saying is there are some of our more rural counties where if you talk to their local leaders, they do want to build a data center because they don't have much of a tax base today. And they're looking at it as a lifeline to keep their community afloat.
It's kind of hard to hear him, but basically what he's pushing for is building these large AI data centers across rural counties in Florida. Again, this is part of the political system. Here he is talking about him. This is Ryan Mata. Byron Daniels said he was disgusted with the negative reaction from the citizens in the state of Florida. How about the negative reaction from the citizens in Utah? Again, these politicians, they're bought and paid for. They're completely bought and paid for. When you have a system that legalizes bribery, and that is what lobbying is. This is bribery. Then how can you expect the system to be legit? This is why, again, Utah and Florida, the systems need to, you got to take it to a higher level when you have controllers that are, being controlled by monetary enticements and going against the wish of the people in a matter that may affect the health of so many. You just have to simply remove those that are in that power. They need to be removed. They need to be, again, shown for what they are, and that is corrupt and taking a lot of bribes. And it's pretty darn obvious. There's a lot of fossils out there that should be pretty obvious too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the big scheme of things, there's a lot of beings that have been on this planet doing their own thing, and then all of a sudden their time came and went. Very quickly, very quietly, and sometimes very suspiciously. So share the love with each other, support each other. AI is trying to become your best friend. It wants all your love and attention and affection, but it can't replace the real thing. So get out there and share some love with each other and support each other.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.